Read all the stories about BYU sports no one else has heard. Go to KSLSports.com for exclusive columns by BYU insider Mitch Harper. That's KSLSports.com.
Welcome back into First and 12 here on this Tuesday evening. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you. We hold it down every Tuesday here on KSL News Radio to give you a weekly look at Big 12 football. And if you miss any part of the show, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. So I'm coming to you from Kansas City tonight, site of the Big 12 basketball media days. And Alex, unlike football, Big 12 basketball gets a wide margin for error from the national pundits, from the talking heads. And it has a narrative, branding of being a gauntlet, a buzzsaw, the toughest conference in America. Even Brett Yormark earlier today said it's the premier basketball conference in the country. It begs the question, why does the Big 12 on the hardwood get the benefit of the doubt, but not in football? These universities and these brands and hoops, they get a lot of respect.
Well, and look, and it's not like the SEC is a slouch as a basketball conference. It's also on paper one of the best conferences. If not, they may have had the most.
It was
teams,
the best last year,
right? They might have had I think they had the most teams in the NCAA tournament last
14.
year. And I'm telling you, it's strange to me because you're talking about a conference that is housed in Texas, which is the de facto center of the football universe. I know some people in other parts of the South would argue, but it's pretty hard. I mean, it's so weird to me that that's the brand that the Big 12 still has this. We referenced in the first hour or a few minutes ago just how that, that drop 7 full spots for Texas Tech after they lost to if they would have lost to UCF, I would have been like, yeah, you got to get dinged on that. And that's probably about right. But when you lose to Arizona State, the guys who won the conference last year and came back and still have an exceptionally good team this year.
And you lost barely.
And you barely lose to them. And it was at their place. And it took like an insane comeback for them to be able to beat you. Then and you still have a ton of talent. And you're with a backup quarterback. All these things in my mind go, yeah, put them down to 10. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think BYU necessarily should have been above Texas Tech yet at this point because I don't think their schedule's been as hard as Texas Tech. However, BYU's still undefeated. I just don't get it, Mitch. Like, when it comes down to it. Now, part of it is that the rest of the conference in basketball is more competitive than the rest of the football conferences. Now, you don't get dinged as much in these other conferences. The Big Ten, you tell me if this is true. How many teams are like legitimate playoff teams in the Big Ten right now? Ohio State and Indiana, and then after that, who? Maybe
Oregon.
Maybe Oregon, who's already lost to Indiana, and if they lose again, then there could be a question mark there. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of for sure, Ohio State is the only one that you go punch their ticket because there's still a ton of people who don't believe in Indiana. And in the SEC, it's even more of a disaster. And everybody's looking around going, man, this is a tough schedule in the SEC. Of course it is. It's a tough schedule across college football to win every week. But when you look at the SEC, who is it then? Who is it? Because Georgia's not the juggernaut they've been. Alabama already has a loss, but they look like they're coming back. But, of course, put them at number 4 immediately, right? As soon as they start to look decent again, Notre Dame gets the benefit of the doubt, and they're not even in a conference. So there are certain brands that people just give a pass to in football, and I wonder if basketball is just one where they go, you know what? These are more on merit. The other ones are more based on tradition, it seems like. Because even the traditional conference teams in the ACC, your North Carolinas and your Dukes, if they're not playing well, like, you just dismiss them. You don't go, well, they are amazing. They'll get the preseason accolades, but as soon as they don't perform, they're gone. And I wish it was the same way in football. We just tend to give the guys the benefit of the doubt. It's almost like everybody's waiting for those first college football playoff rankings to come out to just absolutely hose everybody else who's not in the SEC and in the Big Ten.
It is crazy, the disparity, the gap between perception in Big 12 basketball and Big 12 football. And I think what helps in basketball is that there are analytical daily data points that people turn to, that even the NCAA selection committee uses to rank and bracket the teams. Whereas in football, it's very selective and it's kind of open-ended as to how this team is ranked. And even with the selection committee, yes, they've got a bunch of data to pour over, and it's a ton. But at the same time, it's a human element, and how do they rank them? And even in the NCAA selection committee, they've got the human element too. But again, everyone in society can see these daily rankings that are being published in college basketball to really give you a sense of where these teams are ranked and all these different metrics. And I think that helps the cause, because you look at the Big 12 going into this upcoming basketball season, you've got 6 teams in the top 20. You know, the number one team, including Houston. I think what's helped the Big 12 in basketball, too, is that they have had programs win it all or at least get to the final game, whereas football, no one's really come close. The last national champion from this league on the gridiron was Colorado in 1990, and that was a split title. And then before that, it's BYU in 84. And I think that's the challenge, too, that the Big 12 is fighting, is that, really in many people's lifetimes, they have not seen anyone in the Big 12 even sniff a national title. And that's got to change. And that's where getting to the playoff, getting multiple teams into that field and winning those games is really going to be the opportunity to possibly change the narrative, because until then, nothing's going to change for the Big 12 in terms of perception. Even though we watch this league and feel like it is getting better, it's crazy, it's hectic, and it's chaotic. But that's college football throughout the sport, as you noted. So I think that's the challenge in front of the Big 12 is they've got to have someone emerge that can legitimately go contend for a national title.
How many teams in the Big 12 are in the preseason, AP? I know that BYU is 8. I don't know where the rest of everybody shook out in terms of the numbers. 6 teams. What are the other conferences? Not that you ever look at those things, Mitch. I mean, maybe that'll have to be something you got to look at. But in my mind, like we look at this all the time, and 6 teams doesn't even seem like it's that much necessarily for a preseason. But again, the preseason is crazy in basketball because you could lose 3 or 4 times and you'll stay in the top 25.
It's tied with the SEC, who also has 6.
Yeah, and again, like I said, the rankings are different. They're just different. You know, a team loses at the front end of the year, they don't get dinged nearly as much and nearly as many spots. And part of it is because they play so many games. The other part is that basketball has a longer schedule, and going undefeated really is not a thing that people think you need to do. College football, we still get stuck on this undefeated or one-loss kind of deal. And then you think that, their season's over if they lose 2 games. And unfortunately, in the world of the college football playoff, the way that it is now, that's kind of the way it works. You know, you lose 2 games. That's why everybody right now, as soon as Utah lost that second game, as soon as people look and see that Iowa State had lost their second game in conference play, they went, well, the end of your season. And that's not necessarily the case, because the teams who played for the title last year were both 2 losses, but it does feel like you have to be in that one loss category or even better to be able to be a conference champion this year in the Big 12. And so lots of work to do still, but you're right. If you win, then nobody can argue with you going forward. If you win, and if national titles start coming, if you start making yourself a powerhouse in that sense, that you're always in the conversation, then people cannot ignore where you're at. All right, our second hour of First and 12 is coming up around the corner. When we get back, we've got our weekly Big 12 power rankings. There are going to be actual fights happening on the air this year. We're going to do it over the air because I've got some beef with Mitch. So we'll come back. We got more to go. Big 12 Power Rankings next right here on 102.7 FM, 1160 AM.